You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 218. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where we talk about what really happens when you take a break from drinking. And it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done. I'm Anna, coach to high achievers who are done waking up with regret and ready to feel in control around alcohol. If you've ever wondered what your life could look like with less wine and more you, you're in the right place. Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcast. All right, before I get started here, I wanted to tell you about the free training I'm offering in March. As you may or may not know, every month I come to you and introduced a topic. And the one I have chosen for March is the discipline trap. Now, this is all about, right, you eat well, you exercise, you are disciplined and successful. So why is it that you are drinking wine every evening, right? We know this is not a willpower problem, but what is going on here? So I think that there are 5 reasons why you stay stuck in this, and I'm going to go through each of them and tell you how to do this differently. This is free to attend, but you need to register, and I will be providing a time-limited replay, but again, if you register. So in order to do this, you know, either click the link in the show notes, or you can go to 90dayslater.co/training. That's 90dayslater.co/training. And you can join me at the March free training on the really wonderful topic of the discipline trap, and I hope to see you all there. So let's get on with today's show, which is on the really intriguing topic of when the wine is calling you. Now, 10 years, I want to start with a story. 10 years or so ago, I was walking the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in Spain with my family. Well, we didn't walk the whole thing. We basically took, I think it was 150 kilometers. We backed it out from Santiago and started at that point. And then we had a certain number of days, and every day, right, we would get up and we would walk. And if you've ever done a walk like that, you will know that I think actually it's as though your physical world shrinks and it gives your mind space to expand, right? You're basically walking, eating, resting, repeat, resting, sleeping, walking, eating, resting, sleeping. And I say your mind expands because I find it, when I'm on a walk, I find it incredibly wonderful to see, just to watch my mind, right, as it tumbles through different topics and so on. But when you're in this kind of pilgrimage, life is very basic, right? All you're really thinking about is where you're going. Are you on the right path? Where you're stopping? And when you stop, what are you going to have when you stop? And during this walk, I fell into a little rhythm with one of my sons. Somewhere along the line, he and I started a joke, like a mutual joke. He would say something like, there's a Trina Manzana, and I may have the pronunciation of that incorrect, but this was a particular soft drink he wanted. There's a Trina Manzana with my name on it, Mum, right, at the next place we're going to stop. And I would say, well, there's a G&T with my name on it. And then we'd both agree there was definitely going to be a Kit Kat chocolate bar for each of us with our name on it, right? And this kind of became a thing. It almost became kind of like a headline for the day. At some point during the walk, we would look at each other and we would say these words. We'd bring it up while we were walking. We would laugh about it. We'd refer back to it. Now, it wasn't serious, but it also kind of was, right? It was like we had this little end of day picture that helped us carry through all the kilometers that we were walking many kilometers a day. And here's the part that I find interesting when I look back on those days now. In those moments when we were doing this, when I was saying there's a G&T with my name on it, I didn't actually want the gin and tonic. I wasn't craving it. I wasn't fantasizing about it. I wasn't even really thinking about it. I certainly wasn't thinking, oh, I can't wait for that moment to arrive. But I also knew I would want one when that time arrived. This was kind of like a quiet, unstated assumption. It was almost a certainty. Like, of course, that's what's happening later. It's got my name on it, after all. Why wouldn't I have it? And looking back, I can see how this language, right, this sort of tongue-in-cheek language we were using was feeding this story. How talking about it, about talking about the G&T as a given was gently, or not so gently, but certainly training my brain ahead of time. And that's what I want to talk about today. This is not about whether you drink or don't drink, but the words we use around it, especially the throwaway ones that we think don't matter, do matter. They matter a tremendous amount. I want you to really think about or consider, or if you don't know, right, this will be your first task to figure out how often you do this. How often do you say things like, the wine is calling me, it's got my name on it, I can hear it from the fridge. Now we say this laughing, we say this half joking. We know logically that the wine isn't actually calling us. We are not confused about that. And yet, we kind of treat it as though it is. Look, there's something about this language that gives wine a role in the story, in our story of our lives. Like the wine is doing something. It's like it's reaching out, like you're responding to it rather than choosing it. It's not dramatic, it's subtle, but that's exactly why it works. I like to think of this as kind of like the unchallenged background hum. It's like the white noise. You don't notice it. It's messaging that is running underneath your day that you may barely notice, but your brain absolutely does. And we see this in lots of different ways. I had a client once, and she would tell me she wouldn't think about the wine at all, really at all, until she got home. But then if occasionally her husband might call her at work during the afternoon just for a quick chat and to say, what are we doing this evening? Or to, something like that. She said her brain would go to, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a drink. Right? And that became something that, again, this was the underneath hum that was happening that she wasn't aware of. Right? So when you're saying things like, the wine is calling me, you are telling your brain, you are telling your brain gently that the pull is coming from outside of you. That something is initiating the desire, that at some point this is desire you're going to want to answer and you're going to want to respond to and give into. And once that belief is in place, the craving, the urge starts to feel inevitable. Right? People say to me all the time, Anna, once I start really thinking about the wine, it's basically game over. I know I'm going to drink. But that feeling doesn't come from the wine. It comes from the story you've been telling yourself about how you're thinking and positioning the wine. What is actually happening is much less mystical, right? I mean, people say, I don't know what's happening. No. We know what's happening. What's happening is much less mystical. It is, quite simply, your brain has learned a pattern at certain times of day, in certain environments, when you have certain feelings. They have been paired with wine enough times that your brain goes, yes, this is where we usually do that. So it offers a suggestion ahead of time. That's it. And that is what we call it having our name on it or calling us. There is actually no calling. There is no seduction involved. There is no wine sitting there with your name on it, right? It is just a thought. But when that thought gets framed as the wine wants me, it suddenly feels more immense. It feels harder to ignore. It's like you're resisting something that is powerful instead of noticing just something that an habitual thought. Now, here is where this really matters, because there is a big difference between desire and expectancy. Expectancy is knowing you will want something later. Desire is actually wanting it now. Most people I work with are not drinking because they desperately want the wine in that moment. All right, because they want the wine for the wine. They are drinking because they expected they would and because they've been rehearsing that expectation all day. And if we don't follow through on that, we suddenly feel deprived, which feels very icky, and then we will drink to give ourselves back, right, that expectation, to close that loop. So let's make this practical. You know, I like to have a practical homework element to my podcasts. The next time you catch yourself saying, even jokingly, right, the wine is calling me, I want you to just pause for a second. You do not need to correct yourself. You do not need to tell yourself I'm being stupid again. I just want you to notice what words you are reinforcing. And then by doing that, you get the opportunity to try a slightly different commentary. Maybe, there's that familiar suggestion again. There goes my brain. It is predicting I'm going to do something just because it's learned to do that before, right? When you do this, once you see this as expectancy rather than desire, you are going to create space. Space is valuable. You get the space to decide if this is actually what you want. You get the space to check in with what you're really looking for in that moment. You get the space to choose something else should you want that. This becomes equally powerful in social situations, whether at a party or at a dinner, or maybe when everyone around you is having all the drinks. If the story is the wine is calling me, and you're in those scenarios, if you then say to yourself, but come on, Anna, we weren't going to drink today, that then starts to feel like deprivation. Because you're having a fight. The wine is calling me over there, but I'm not allowed to have it. And it becomes as though you are holding yourself back from something that belongs to you because you expected it. But if you rewrite this story as this is just that old familiar script, suddenly it's just information. And from there you can choose. You can choose where you want to go because you have your responsibility back. Listen, wine was never the thing you wanted. It probably truly wasn't. In my client's case, it is for sure. It was just the shortcut your brain learned. Our brains love shortcuts. Even when they don't best serve us. I want you to think about if you have a particular route you walk and you can take a shortcut through the park. And you know it's going to shave 10 minutes off. But if the park is all boggy and muddy and nasty, and you do that, you're not going to save that time because you're going to be cleaning your shoes. Right? But the brain, we just get acclimatized to these shortcuts. So this isn't about never saying these phrases again. Although I do counsel you to simply drop saying that the wine is calling my name. But this isn't about being perfect. I want to be very clear there because a lot of my clients they want to be perfect. This is about understanding truly that the words you use are shaping what feels inevitable. And when you start changing that background hum, even slightly, the urges lose their authority because you are seeing that you have full agency. The urges will stop sounding like commands and start sounding like suggestions. Right? Which is what they always were. And when we see that, we then open up the space to decide something different. Because really, the wine was never calling you. You were just listening to a story your brain learned a long time ago. And if you do this work, if you consider this, if you see the stories that you're creating, you will understand why you act the way you do, which is why you might be over drinking or going against yourself or always, waking up filled with remorse because the night before you didn't do what you said you were going to do, and over again. And if you want the way out of this, right, and if you just listen to my podcast, right, and you follow what I say here, you are going to get transformations, you are going to get results. But if you want me to map for you the quickest straight line out of where you are now to where you want to be, Whether that means you basically stop drinking entirely, whether that means you just have a couple of glasses 2 or 3 times a week, whether that means you just maybe have something to drink at the weekend, whatever it is you want. I have my clients, they come to me with all different desires and we create all sorts of different results. I can help you do that. I am the one to get you there, right? So that you will always know your game plan. You'll be supported every step of the way. You won't be confused, and we will make this work for you. And for those of you who are ready for that, right, I want you to go ahead and book a call with me, book a free consultation call where it's all about you, right? You get to tell me everything about where you are now and where you want to be. And then I'll talk about how I can help you get there. I will even on that call map out the exact steps for you that you would need to follow. So you will have zero confusion. This is great for those of you who are like, oh, I don't know. I just don't know how to do it. Nothing works. I will tell you exactly what to do and how to get there. And that is available to you right now. You can be through with this struggle, even if you've been struggling for decades. I have a client who a couple of weeks ago did her first alcohol-free day in about 15, actually no, it was more than that. It was more like 20 years. And she did it. And she did it again, right? Doesn't mean she has to be alcohol-free for life, but she knows she can be alcohol-free because she knows the wine is not calling her. So go ahead and do that. Book that call with me on 90dayslater.co or email me anna@90dayslater.co. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. If this episode hit home and you're ready to explore what life could look like with alcohol in the back seat, let's talk. I work with people one-on-one who are ready to create the relationship with alcohol that works for them, so they feel powerful in their choices and at peace with their habits. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or grab one of the free guides in the show notes to this episode. And if this podcast is helping you, a rating or review goes a long way to help others find this work too.